So without further ado, you have all come to learn about sharks and dolphins. We're going to compare and contrast the two throughout today's talk. And I'm going to be joined by my good friend, Miss Jillian. She is the founder and president of Sharks4Kids. Some of you may have heard about this talk through Sharks and a ton of webinars and stuff. I'll show you some looks at their website later on. And Dr. Kathleen from DCP, she's monitoring the chat. So make sure you get your questions in there and we will answer your questions at the end. I also wanted to tell you that Miss Jillian is the author of the children's book, Norman the Nurse Shark, and she has a new book coming out, Shark Superpowers. It doesn't come out until next month, but you can look for it then. You can look for it next month, or you can pre-order it now. So just go to sharks4kids.com and you can get all of that good info. So who are we here today? I'm Kel. I know some of you already, and I am a researcher with the Dolphin Communication Project. You can see it's back there. But Dolphin Communication Project is a lot to say every single time, so we just say DCP. And DCP studies dolphins in a few places around the world, but I'm lucky enough to study the wild dolphins right off the coast of Bimini, a little island in the Bahamas. And that's me recording a bottlenose dolphin with our special video camera and hydrophone system. And I'll let Jillian tell you a little bit about herself.
All right, well, hello everyone. Thank you so much to DCP for hosting this and including me. I've been lucky enough to swim with these amazing dolphins. I also call Bimini home, and along with the incredible dolphins, we also have a lot of sharks, and that's really why I'm in Bimini and do the work I do. So I am a marine biologist, and I've spent a lot of time traveling and working on different projects all over the world to study these amazing animals, and started Sharks4Kids. So you guys definitely, I know Kelly's gonna show you some images later to kind of have an explore of the website, fun facts, activities, videos, coloring sheets to learn a little bit more about these amazing animals. So thank you for everyone joining today, and thank you so much to DCP for creating this opportunity and for having me.
We're so happy you're here. And I have a question for everybody first. So I study dolphins, which means I like them because they're cool. And Miss Jillian studies and teaches about sharks. And we are not quite sure if we should be friends, because don't sharks eat dolphins? And I don't know if they should be friends, if we should be friends. So what do you guys think? What's your vote? Do you think that Team Dolphin and Team Sharks can be friends? Do you think we should learn about the creatures a little bit first? All right.
We're getting some yeses.
Dolphins, as many of you may already know, are mammals. Oh, some yeses, I hope. Let's see. Otherwise, I don't know, Miss Jillian. I don't know. We'll see. Dolphins are mammals, which means they breathe air. Are you guys mammals? What do you think? Do you breathe air? Dolphins and all mammals give milk to their babies when they're little. And at some point, they have at least a little bit of hair. And one thing about mammals that people often forget, because it's not as flashy, has to do with their ear bones inside. Who'd have thought? So let's find out about sharks. Do you think sharks are mammals too? What do you think? There it goes.
All right, so sharks, this answer might surprise a lot of people. They're actually fish. And if you're thinking, wait a minute, they look a lot different or they seem very different than other fish, they actually are. All right, but they are a fish. They do breathe underwater using gills. They are ectothermic. It means they're the same temperature as the water around them, with the exception of a few species like the white shark, mako shark, poor beagle, and salmon shark, which actually have this cool function where they can keep their core muscles, kind of your stomach, warmed up and ready to swim really fast to chase their fast food. They do live their entire life in water. They never have to go to the surface to breathe. And like fish, though, they don't actually, fish have a swim bladder. So this is slightly different in sharks. They don't actually have a swim bladder. They have a very oily liver. And a really fun experiment, if you've never done it at home, is put some oil and water together and see what happens. So the swim bladder is sort of an internal balloon that can go up and deflate. It helps the fish kind of stay buoyant. Well, without that, sharks need some way so they don't just sink to the bottom of the ocean or float to the surface. And their really oily, very large liver can help them do that. Right? So absolutely a fish, a little bit different than some of the other fish you might know, but they are a fish.
So now we brought up this breathing air versus breathing underwater. So let's hit up comparing and contrasting how they breathe first. So how do you all breathe? You can talk about it with each other. If someone else is in the room, you can type stuff into the chat. Do you breathe through your nose? And through your mouth? Pretty cool, huh? How many nostrils do you have? Do we all have two? I've got two. You? You? Everybody has two? Well, dolphins breathe through their blowhole, which isn't at the top of the front of their face. It's all the way up at the top of their head. And dolphins in particular have just one open. So if we just had one nose opening, we'd be more like a dolphin. Why do you think that their blowhole isn't at the front of their face? Why do you think it's at the top of their head? Have any of you ever gone snorkeling with a mask and a snorkel? When you put that snorkel in your mouth, where did it bring the air hole? Up to the top of your head, right? And so that meant that you could keep watching everything that you were looking at without lifting your head out of the water to take a breath. You could look at the fish, you could look at the sand, the coral, and just take a breath out of your snorkel whenever you needed to. So that's much handier spot for their blowhole for dolphins who live in the ocean. But they do have to come to the surface. They have to open that blowhole because it's normally closed. What if your nostrils were closed all the time and then you had to open them to breathe? Then you would be more like a dolphin. And why do you think it's handy to have this blowhole closed most of the time if you were swimming in the ocean all the time? Any guesses? Might be nice to help make sure water doesn't get in there all the time, right? So it's closed, and then right before they get to the surface, they open it, they let out their breath, and they take a new breath and close it before they go back down. Do sharks have blowholes, Miss Jillian?
No, they do not. They have gills, which you could think of like the shark's lungs. So we all take a big breath in, and that air is going to our lungs, right? So sharks have gills. They don't swim up and take a big breath. They actually move forward with their mouth open. Water goes in their mouth, moves along the gills, and comes out those openings you can see in that image on the side. Those are the openings to the gill slits. They'll have 5, 6, or 7 of those. Most sharks have 5 on each side. And the water goes through, and they get oxygen from the water, just like we get oxygen from the air. Now, some of you have heard sharks have to keep swimming to stay alive. Has anyone ever heard that? They have to swim to breathe. They stop swimming, they'll die. Type that in if you guys have ever heard that. I think people say it. I've heard that a lot, right? So if you've heard that, it is true about some species. Things like white sharks, the great white, the great hammerhead, the mako shark, they have to move forward with their mouth open in order for water to go in. It's called ram ventilation. You can think of it, they're ramming the water in to be able to breathe. Now, things like these lemon sharks you see behind me, nurse sharks, tiger sharks, they can actually rest right on the bottom. And if you've ever seen a nurse shark, we have a lot of them in the Bahamas, you probably saw them sitting on the bottom, laying on the bottom, not really doing much, right? They're able to buccal pump, right? Which means they can actually suck the water in, right? They have very strong throat muscles. They'll suck the water in and move it over their gills. So those sharks do not have to swim to breathe. Right, so you'll often see them having a bit of a sharky rest on the bottom simply because they can. Right? So they all breathe underwater. They're getting oxygen from the water as it's moving over their gills, but they don't all have to swim to breathe.
Cool. We are also Mythbusters here today. So how about reproduction? We want there to be more dolphins and more sharks in the ocean. So they have to have their babies. Dolphins have one baby at a time. And that baby comes out alive, not in an egg. And mom is going to take lots of care of baby. The baby is also going to come out tail first. Anybody have an idea if you need to be at the surface of the water to breathe, but you're going to be born to have your tail come out first when you're born? Good ideas. It's so the blowhole is one of the last things to come out of the mother. And then the baby can swim right up to the surface, maybe get a nudge from mom to get there and take its first breath. Here in Bimini, we get to see the dolphin babies, which are called calves. We get to see the calves with their moms for a few years. We usually see them stay together for about 3 to 4 years. We've seen one mom and calf stay together for more than 5 years. But you know what happens after? What are you gonna do? If you move out one day, are you still gonna come over and have dinner with your parents or your auntie or your mom, whoever's raising you? I hope so. I hope we all get to hang out with our parents when we're older. Not always these dolphins. Most of the calves here in Bimini seem to not really hang out with their moms after they're independent. When they're hanging out with other juveniles, they're catching their own fish, they're doing their own thing, except Les and her baby Paul. Something about Dolphin Leslie and Dolphin Paul, they still hang out, not every day, but more often than any of the other mother-calf pairs that we've observed here in Bimini. Do you think sharks are born the same way as dolphins? Just one at a time, tail first, head straight up to the air to breathe? I think Miss Jillian needs to set me straight.
So while sharks do not have lots of babies, they certainly have, it's very different for the most part than dolphins. So there are a couple of different methods that sharks have for giving birth. Yes, some of them do lay egg cases. And you can kind of see in that bottom left image, all those cases lined up. And mom will lay the egg case. Inside there's a yolk, sort of think like a chicken egg, but the mother doesn't sit on the nest or take care of them. They're in that hard case. She might put it under some coral or rocks or kelp, and she's done. She leaves, right? And after a few months to a year, depending on the type of shark, that little baby will break out of the case, wriggle out, and it might only be a few inches long, and it's on its own. Mom's not around, right? It's off in the big, wide open ocean to try and survive. Right? You can kind of see on the bottom right, that little horn shark wriggling out of that case. Nurse sharks, again, a very common species in the Bahamas. They actually have an egg case inside the mom. Right? So they're in the egg case and they're actually in mom. And when they're ready, they'll hatch out, right? And then they're born alive. And the third main way that sharks actually reproduce is they give live birth. So that lemon shark, it might be a little bit tough to see, but they actually give live birth, and the babies, which are called pups, think of like baby puppies, all right, little pups, are actually attached to the mother with an umbilical cord, right, just like we were. So that means, you can kind of see there's an image with a shark and a ruler. They actually have little belly buttons when they're born, right? It's really a scar, but we're gonna say some sharks have little belly buttons, which is pretty amazing, right? One of my favorite facts, and that's a lemon shark. But some sharks might only lay one egg case, or have whale sharks, it's up to about 300 babies, but again, they're all on their own. And that's not thousands of eggs, like if you think of other fish, they spawn, they lay thousands of eggs at a time, maybe multiple times a year. Sharks don't actually do that. And some of them do only lay one egg case. So very different. And no matter what type, mom's not around, dad's not around, the parents, I know there's a song, makes it seem like they're all hanging out. Mom and dad do not take care of their babies and would actually eat their own young in some cases. So very, very different than dolphins.
But dolphins also have a belly button. So we found another way that at least some sharks have something else in common with dolphins. Now, how about how they move around? They both swim in the ocean. They both have lots of the same fins, but let's focus on their tails. Who can make their hands into a dolphin tail? Maybe? Can anybody else make a dolphin tail? All right. Swim around your living room. All right. So the dolphin tail goes up and down. And most people would actually think that the force, the strongest stroke, when the dolphins would get the most oomph from their tail, is when the tail is going from up to down. But scientists have actually discovered that the dolphin gets the most power when the tail is going from down to up. So the upstroke is more powerful, and the downstroke is the recovery stroke. Up and down, up and down. So if you're ever looking and you're not sure if you saw a dolphin or a shark, you could look at that tail. Let's see how that compares to the shark tail.
So if you notice, you'll see the shark tail is kind of like this versus like that, right? And you can think of a shark as an airplane, right? Kind of gliding through. And they use that tail the same way. It's the power that pushes them forward, but they'll use their other fins to kind of get lift and turn in the water. You can think of the airplane wings, the little flaps on the end kind of helping it go up and down, right? Sharks are sort of designed like that. And that tail fin is moving back and forth. And you'll notice on some sharks, and this is a fun thing to look after, if you see a photo of a nurse shark tail, right? They're missing that bottom bit. Right? They spend a lot of time on the bottom. They don't have to swim really fast to chase down a conch, a big snail. Conch's not going very fast, right? Or a lobster. So they don't really have to be able to swim fast. But if you look at something like this Caribbean reef shark, their food is a little bit faster, or something like a mako shark. That tail, you'll see, is very, very powerful, top and bottom, built for speed, really the propeller, the engine that's pushing them forward.
Cool. How about their skin? Thinking about dolphins and sharks, but first dolphins go through the water using that tail to propel themselves. Their skin is very smooth. Why do you think a dolphin would want its skin to be nice and smooth? Anybody have any guesses about why that might be helpful for them? And some guesses in there, chatting at home. It helps them be more hydrodynamic, right? So they don't want a lot of fur and a lot of extra appendages sticking out, creating drag. They want to be as efficient as possible as they swim through the water. but their skin is also very sensitive, and they use touch to communicate with each other, just the way we do, right? A handshake might mean something, or somebody that you're close with might put their hand on your shoulder or give you a hug. Touch is important to humans. It's also very important for dolphins. So if you ever see a dolphin in the wild, you never want to touch it, even if it comes super close to you, because we don't want to hurt their sensitive skin, and we don't want to send them a message that they might not understand. And DCP looks a lot at how dolphins, particularly their pectoral fins, those fins on the side, love to use those to touch each other and pass messages back and forth. Sharks live in the ocean too, so they want to be hydrodynamic. Is their skin nice and smooth, Miss Jillian?
Well, you would think, based on what you said, smooth skin would be easier to go through the water, but sharks actually have incredibly rough skin. If you're at home and you have some people doing some projects, some DIY, because people are home now and maybe they're fixing up and building stuff, you might have some sandpaper in your house, or a nail file that's a little bit rough, or even your cat's tongue, right? And the shark skin feels really rough because if you look at this nurse shark, you can see them a little bit. Well, if we got even closer, you'd see their little teeth called dermal denticles, which means skin teeth. And they cover the whole shark. And one, they protect the animal. They're very, very strong. But believe it or not, in the case of the shark, this rough skin actually helps them swim. Right? It's rough if you kind of feel the edges of those teeth, but they all lie flat, kind of lined up together, and they have little grooves that allow the water to pass over them, right? So it makes it easier for them to swim. And they'll have different sized and shape. Olympic swimsuits have been designed on this pattern, and really you can think about it for either the dolphin or the shark. If you wanted to swim really fast, you're not going to jump in the ocean or a swimming pool with a big winter jacket and a hat and boots and a sweatshirt on. You'll wear a swimsuit, right? But sharks and dolphins don't get to select their morning outfit, right? It's built in. So both systems work to help these animals move through the water.
Efficiency is key. So how about when they're living in the ocean, how do they get information, their senses? So how about vision? A lot, scientists are still learning about the vision of these animals. But a few things that we do know about dolphins is that they have both monocular vision and they have binocular vision. So they can use their eyes independently, and they can use their eyes together. They can actually move each eye independently, like a chameleon, or they can bring them together and see in binocular vision. Because dolphins have been in the ocean for millions of years, it might be a bit surprising that they can actually still see fairly well in the air. But we know that they can. They have great vision underwater, and they have surprisingly good vision in the air as well. We do know that they have rods and cones. You might have heard those terms in science class. But it's really hard to design an experiment where you can ask a non-human animal about the colors they see. Scientists keep trying to come up with new ways to ask that question and design the experiment. But what we have learned, what we do know, is that dolphins can at least see shade and brightness, contrast, but we still have a lot to learn, and they may not be able to see color. I wonder what the shark eye is like.
So it's actually very similar. Again, if you can kind of see this diagram, cornea, pupil, retina, they also have rods and cones. So if you've talked about the anatomy of an eye. So sometimes I hear people say, oh, sharks have terrible vision. No, they have excellent vision, actually. Some of them, like the nurse shark, have excellent night vision. They have a reflective layer on the back of the eye. So things like deep sea sharks, any tiny little bit of light that can come in, it's kind of magnified. So it doubles the amount of light they're actually seeing. Now, when it comes to their vision, their eyes are pretty close set, right? So it is more binocular. But if you think about the hammerhead, you might think, wow, they probably can't see anything because those wide set eyes. But believe it or not, the hammerhead swims in kind of that S-shaped pattern, and the eyes are positioned slightly forward. So they can actually, when they're moving, see not right in front of their nose, like if something was stuck on their face, just like if you had something stuck right there, you might try and you're going to look cross-eyed trying to see it. But they can actually see full 360. So they're kind of a super powered shark when it comes to vision, right? But when it comes to the color, same thing. So it's a little trickier with sharks as well. There's over 500 different species. So this hasn't been studied in every single species. And just earlier this year, end of last year, they actually, a paper came out thinking it's more of shades of variations of light and dark versus yellow, red, green, how we sort of perceive colors. But still not a definite answer, because like the dolphins, you can't really ask them, the sharks, hey, what color do you see, or do you see this? So yeah, so if any of you grow up and become marine biologists to study dolphins or sharks, maybe you'll develop some way to actually determine this and learn something new about either species or both, which is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. So there will still be plenty of science for you all to do when you're older. So we talked about vision. Now let's move on to smell. Does anyone know how well a bottle nose can smell? It's got nose in its name after all, so it must have a really good, useful nose. Am I right? Am I trying to trick you? Despite their name, some of you are right. Bottlenose dolphins and all dolphins, they don't even have a nose at all. Bottlenose dolphin just got its name because people thought that thing sticking out of their face looked like the shape of a bottle, and it was in the place on its face where a nose belonged. But their mouth or their beak is actually called a rostrum, and it's not a nose at all. They don't have a nose, and in fact, scientists don't think that dolphins even have a sense of smell at all, but they have a sense of taste. Yum, yum. I wonder how sharks measure up when it comes to smell.
So sharks, smell is super important, right? They do have nostrils called nares, you can see just like we do, but they only use them for smell. Sharks breathe through their mouth. So if you've ever had a cold, you know, you're kind of stuffed up and you have to breathe through your mouth and you kind of talk funny, that happens again, you're a shark, because they always breathe through their mouths. Those nostrils are just for super sniffing. And the sense of smell is linked to one of the largest parts of their brain. It is very important, but no, they cannot smell a drop of blood from 10 miles, 5 miles, a mile away. Probably the best example is if you had a normal sized swimming pool and you put maybe a spoonful of blood in it, they'd probably be able to smell it in that area, right? So it's certainly not miles and miles away. Very, very strong, important for the shark to find its food, but not quite as extreme or scary as some people make it seem.
All right, so maybe sharks are starting to seem awfully cool. I don't know, we'll see. How about their other senses that are different from what we humans have? Dolphins have something called echolocation. And in this little graphic, you can see that they can send a sound signal out from their head. That's called the melon. And the sound goes out, it hits an object, and then the echo comes back. And the echo, some of you may have already listened to some earlier DCP talks, the echo doesn't actually go to their ears. Echo is received through their lower jaw. And that's about where we kind of don't know what's happening. But they're able to process that echo and learn information like where the object is, the object's moving, the density of the object, and this can help them detect predators, find their food, find each other, find their way at night, or if they're in an environment where the water clarity is very bad. Here in Bimini, it's nice and clear, you can see lots of stuff, but dolphins are in every ocean and in some rivers, so sometimes they don't always have the benefit of being able to use their vision. They do have the benefit of using their echolocation. But what is this electroreception? Dolphins don't have that. Do sharks?
Yeah, so sharks don't have echolocation, but they do have another super powered sense, electroreception. And you're thinking, what? Okay, wait a minute. So if you look, this is a tiger shark, and you can see all those dots that look like freckles, or the shark hasn't shaved in a few days. They're not freckles. Each one of those is a little pore that's filled with gel. Think of hair gel or jello, right? And that little pore can actually detect the heartbeat of an animal, right? Think about it. We can hold perfectly still, close your eyes, hold your breath, and your heart is still beating, right? You can still feel it. Well, that's the same thing for, say, a stingray or a fish. It hides in the sand, it's buried, it's covered with the sand, and it's like, yeah, I'm safe. Shark can't see me. Yeah, the shark probably cannot see you. Can't hear you, maybe can't smell you. But as the shark swims in that S-shaped pattern and gets close, those pores will start to kind of tingle. You can think of this as a built-in metal detector. But the shark's not looking for buried treasure or lost jewelry. They're finding lunch, and they can actually feel that heartbeat. Right? So super powered sense, but it has to be very close. The echolocation of a dolphin is a further distance. The shark's got to be within a couple feet of that object to kind of definitely feel that heartbeat and pinpoint finding their lunch. So very different, but definitely can help them navigate as well using magnetic fields, because they can feel that. That's what a lot of scientists are studying now, is actually, are they using these underwater magnetic fields to actually navigate on these very large migration patterns.
Very, very cool. Well, we know a bit about how their bodies are built, a bit about their senses, but what about their social lives? Dolphins are generally very social animals. It depends on the species, how big the groups can get, if the groups are all related or if they're not related, if the group stays together all the time, or if they mix and match, hang out with. But dolphins as a whole are very social, seem to have friendships, they like to play. There are 4 spotted dolphins here in Bimini. There are 4 boys, and they hang out a lot and have done so for years in a row. It's Splitjaw, Prince William, Tim, and Speedy. And they're not exactly the same age. Splitjaw is the oldest, and they aren't together every minute of the day, but they seem to spend a lot more time together than they do with any other dolphins. Female dolphins here in Bimini seem to change their friends over time, and it's often based on who's having a baby the same year. So then those moms hang out together when their calves are young, and we want to keep studying them to see if those calves who hung out as youngsters, they have a stronger relationship when they get older. If you missed it, it's a little bit more of like a high school kid talk and older, but you might enjoy listening to a little bit of our earlier webinar that talks about these friendships and these relationships that the spotted dolphins here in Bimini have. I picture sharks just swimming just by themselves. I hear the Jaws music coming. Dun, dun, dun. But in this picture, Miss Jillian, that's a lot of sharks all together.
Yes, so you've probably noticed some of the things that I've said they're all sharks, but it's different for each different species. So there isn't one set answer. So yes, some sharks are very solitary. They prefer to be by themselves. They might show up to the same area to breed or to feed on a specific animal that might be migrating at a time of year, or follow a similar migration or travel pattern, but they're not doing it right together with their buddies. Now, the lemon sharks you see here, we have a lot of them in Bimini, and they spend their first 5 to 7 years of their life as newborns in the mangroves, right? These forests that these bushes that have their roots right down in the water. It's kind of cool cave system, lots of food, great places to hide out. And here we actually see the juvenile lemon sharks not only have friends, but best friends, right? And they might hunt with one friend, and they might hide out or rest with another friend, right? So they're doing different activities. So in some species, they can be very, very social. Now, as they get a bit older, you're not going to see them. These ones in the photo are kind of teenage lemon sharks. They're kind of all in the area because we put some bait in the water to get them to come in, little bits of fish, so that we could photograph them and study them. So they're kind of in the area, not because this is a shark birthday party and they're all hanging out, but some of these sharks might be closer or have friendships. You also see with dogfish, which are several different species of shark, but they get that name because they actually hunt together like a pack of dogs. So we do see some different social structures with sharks, some very lone wolves, don't want to hang out with anybody else, others like these little lemon sharks with their best buddies. So very different than dolphins. We don't see them playing or interacting kind of at that same level, but pretty cool to think that in some species, there are sharks that have friends.
Very, very interesting. And I am a dolphin researcher. I've been studying them off Bimini. This summer, I haven't get a chance to go out on the boat yet. Will be my 18th season studying the dolphins of Bimini. So I'm guessing that's older than of you who are listening in right now. And so I really like dolphins because it's okay to like your job. And I'm guessing you really like sharks, Miss Jillian. But as we learn about both of them, okay, that I think both of them are really cool.
I think
it's okay. And we can be friends, right?
Definitely.
I think so too. So it's important to also remember that dolphins and sharks are both really important for the ocean ecosystem. We want that ocean to stay healthy for all of the creatures and for us. So for dolphins and sharks to have a nice, safe, healthy place to live, we need the ocean to be healthy. And so we all need to do our part to keep the ocean protected. And even you all can do that. And one of the ways that we do that is by learning more, right? It's a lot easier to know how to protect something, to care about something, if you know something about it. And so these classes on your computers are a great way to learn more about them. So if you haven't already tuned in to all the awesome Sharks4Kids webinars on their YouTube channel, that's a little screenshot of them. They've got lots and lots of great programming up there. They also have their website, which is full of activities for teachers and for students, coloring sheets to download, all sorts of stuff. Miss Jillian, is there anything about your website that you want everyone to know about? I just kind of started.
Yeah, that's great. One thing that we have up just for now, because we're not doing kind of in classroom and outreach events, is if you go under the education tab, we actually have a virtual shark dive. So that's pretty fun. If you want to actually go hang out with some of these guys, you can do it on your phone and move it around, or your mouse. If you do have a set of VR goggles, you can view it on YouTube. There's a link in there, so you could actually go swim with some of the amazing sharks that we have in Bimini. So check that out. It's on the website for a little bit while most of us are at home learning and exploring. But yeah, it's all free to dive in and check out to learn more about these amazing animals.
Dive in. Ha ha ha. And of course, DCP has our website to our education tab. If you want to find the recordings of our webinars, they're also on YouTube if you like YouTube better. And under the education tab is also where you'll find the kids' science activities. So those are some activities that you can download for free. And then we have our upcoming programs. So our podcast, it's called the Dolphin Pod, get it? Dr. Justin Gregg and Laura Teasdale host that. That's free wherever you get your podcasts. On Thursdays, we have kind of an older audience, high school kids and up programs. This Thursday, Dr. Kathleen is going to be talking about pectoral fin contact. And then next Tuesday, I'm going to be talking about DCP number 104 and his stranding and recovering and release story. So that should be cool next week. And before we take questions, just want to thank you all for being here today. Remind you that you can stay in touch. You see all of our social media and website and email info up there. There are all sorts of ways that you can support Sharks4Kids and their programming so that they can keep doing stuff for free for folks. And then DCP, same thing, we're all nonprofits. And the starred things in the DCP list are Adopt a Dolphin, memberships, t-shirts, things like that. If you spend, or for every $15 you or your parents, your friends spend on those things, we'll send an electronic adoption kit to an essential worker, so a nurse or a doctor, a grocery store worker, a bus driver, people who've been working really hard during this crazy time, or just someone who needs a pick-me-up. Are all of you guys, are some of you getting pretty sick of being at home? Life's a little tough right now, huh? We're just giving as many of those away for free as we can, as people support us. So you can go ahead and do that as well. And reminder, this is while we're doing a little Q&A, we've gone a little longer than we meant to, sorry. Get your emails into the chat to DCP if you want to be entered into today's giveaway of the electronic adoption kit. So now we'll bring in Dr. Kathleen and we'll see how many questions we can get to.
Hello, I think my video is coming up as we have
There
that.
you are.
How are you guys? Hi.
Oh.
We actually have quite a few questions. You guys have kept me typing as we go along. Before I get into the questions, the content questions, we did have a quick question about where under the Sharks4Kids education tab do they find the virtual swim, or under the videos?
It's under the education tab. So across the top where Kelly kind of highlighted, if you can go back to that slide, Kel, I can. So you can see the 4 teachers, 4 students. There's an education tab. If you just kind of put your mouse over that, it's going to have a drop-down menu, and you'll see VR Shark Dive. So it's right there. It's also on our YouTube channel. So if you find Sharks4Kids on YouTube, you can find it under there as well.
Cool. And so we have several questions. I think we can try to get to as many of them as we can. One of the questions was, do the skin teeth on sharks move up and down like your teeth would be when you're eating?
Good question. No, and you can think of like our teeth, really just kind of the points on them is why they're sort of referred to as teeth, but they're fixed. So, and they'll actually, we have some kind of diagrams on there you can see on the page if you have a bit and explore. They're actually sort of fixed. and kind of leveled and layered to create that sort of flow as we spoke of. So not moving up and down, not doing anything like that, fixed on the shark's body like skin, just allowing them to swim easier.
Okay, very cool. Then, well, one of the questions for both of you, I guess, is, do you have a favorite type of shark?
I'll let Kelly go first. I want to know what her favorite shark is.
I just thought about what my favorite shark is. I guess I'd have to think about it because I want to give the best, what my favorite would be. And I think actually I have to learn more about sharks. I think I kind of only know about like the big sharks that we all know about, great white sharks and tiger sharks and bull sharks. And then some of the common sharks around here, like Caribbean reef sharks and nurse sharks. I don't know, but my favorite might be the spotted eagle ray, which is kind of a relative of the shark.
Very cool. We call those, they're like the sea pancakes, the flat sharks. Very cool. Mine is the great hammerhead. We're really lucky in Bimini to have these animals come through. They migrate through and spend the winter months in very shallow, clear water. So we spend a lot of time with them. Sadly, a critically endangered species. So hopefully by studying them, sharing information, we'll actually see them survive and not that next step. But I will admit, I have also done some dolphin projects, not only in Bimini, but in Shark Bay, and looking at the relationships with tiger sharks and the dolphins there. Even though sharks are my passion, I love, I do still think dolphins are pretty awesome. And the spotted dolphins in Bimini are absolutely incredible to be around.
Very cool. Well, then the next sort of as a joint set of questions is, what's the smallest and the largest type of shark? And then the most common type of shark? And then how many sharks are there? And I think you mentioned that, but we'll just revisit that.
Yes, so sharks, again, there's over 500 species. We're approaching 550 known living species. Wow. New species discovered, yeah, right? It's crazy. New species are discovered every single year. So again, for those junior scientists watching with us, if you grow up and study sharks, you might discover a new species.
Very cool.
The largest is the whale shark, about 45 to 50 feet in length. It's bigger than a school bus. And the smallest you could hold in your hand. There's the dwarf lantern shark, and now the pocket shark, which is just inched out by about a half an inch smaller, the little pocket shark. And not because it fits in your pocket, it's got little pockets behind its pectoral fins that hold glow-in-the-dark liquid that it squirts out. Pretty amazing animal. Yeah, right. I would have thought amazing. And so there's over 500 different species. Still millions of sharks. Unfortunately, humans and human impact on the oceans is taking that number down, which is why you guys learning about all different ocean animals is so important for keeping this natural habitat healthy and clean.
Very cool. So another question. Do sharks sometimes attack dolphins, not for food, but because maybe they're competing for the same resource or for the same thing?
That is a good question. I don't think that anyone has ever documented that. They're probably in different niches of their ecosystem. So even if they're in the same general area, they've learned ways to spread out so that they're not directly competing. But it is sometimes try and attack a dolphin, even if it's going to lose, like try and get a bite, but it's just a snack. It's not trying to actually eat the whole dolphin. And there's a species of shark, the cookie cutter shark, that will take bites out of dolphins in areas where they overlap. And the dolphin recovers from it. It gets a nasty wound, but it's relatively small versus, you know, the whole size of the dolphin, and it recovers quite well from those bites.
Very cool. Very cool. So do you think we have time for maybe one more question?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good to me.
Awesome. So there was a question when you were comparing the social behavior of the sharks and the dolphins. Could the social difference be because the dolphins actually grow up with mom? They have the first couple of years with mom, whereas the sharks don't have necessarily that maternal input, and maybe that affects some of the social behavior you might see, you know, as they get a little older?
I mean, from my perspective, I think it could be, I mean, that's part of it, but also is the baby sharks don't need their parents. They're sort of just mini versions. They're not getting milk from mom. They've got their teeth, all their sensory systems. So they're fully functional, just tiny versions. And they definitely have to hide out. They will have predators, but they're not actually needing mom. So there isn't really that need for that bond. It very much could be part of that, but it's more likely that, I mean, they're sort of on their own and they're fully functional. We see safety in numbers with the little sharks just simply because they are smaller. So it's probably not a friendship for more, so like it's less social, more survival than it is our friendships, which tend to be because we just like interacting with people and having some company.
Cool.
And that those social relationships that happen later in life may have evolved because of the need, the physical need to be with your mom when you're little. And therefore, mom needs other relationships. Dolphins often cooperatively hunt. So they have to have relationships so everybody knows each other's jobs and how to communicate with each other and how to find the food and how to forage and get that food successfully sometimes takes teamwork. So they have to build those relationships in order to be successful through their whole lives. Cool question.
Yeah, very cool.
And we're going to thank everybody for coming. We took a little longer than we usually do on Tuesdays, but thank you all for coming. I hope you learned a little bit. And if you came in on Team Dolphin, I hope maybe you have a new appreciation for sharks. And if you came in on Team Shark, I hope you have a new appreciation for dolphins. And we'll just thank everybody, and a big, big thank you to Miss Jillian for joining us today. Thank you, Miss Jillian.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining, and thank you for having me. And definitely you can be both Team Dolphin and Team Shark. So thank you guys so much.
Very cool. Well, see you guys on Thursday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.